In the heart of the sweltering Anglo-Zulu War, Lord Chelmsford, Britain's iron-fisted commander-in-chief, unleashed a daring invasion into the wild heart of Zululand, 3 relentless columns slicing through the mist-shrouded lands like a predator's claws. At the vanguard marched the mighty Central Column, 7,800 battle-hardened souls under his unyielding gaze, a juggernaut engineered to ensnare the elusive Zulu army, drag it into the open, and shatter it. Chelmsford knew the stakes. Those fierce warriors could melt into the shadows, evade his grasp, and unleash hell upon Natal's vulnerable heart. The spine of this imperial beast? 12 crack companies of regular infantry, forged in fire and unbreakable as steel, bolstering their ranks. 2,500 fierce African auxiliaries from the Natal native contingent, exiled Zulus and refugees, their loyalties as tangled as the vines they trampled. Flanking them rode ragged bands of colonial cavalry, wild and untamed, while thunderous artillery rumbled behind, 6 field guns belching death, laced with the screeching fury of Congreve rockets. Driven by desperate ambition, Chelmsford and his scheming ally, Bartle Frere, hurled their forces into the fray during the raging rainy season, a gamble that turned rivers to quagmires, bogging the advance to an agonizing crawl, whispering omens of the catastrophe to come. The Zulu army, while a product of a warrior culture, was essentially a militia force which could be called out in times of national danger. It had a very limited logistical capacity and could only stay in the field a few weeks before the troops would be obliged to return to their civilian duties. Zulu warriors were armed primarily with assegai thrusting spears and shields made of cowhide. Some Zulus also had old muskets and antiquated rifles, stockpiles a relatively few of which were carried by Zulu impis. The generality of Zulu warriors, however, would not have firearms. The British had timed the invasion to coincide with the harvest, intending to catch the Zulu warrior farmers dispersed. Fortunately for Cetshwayo, the Zulu king, the Zulu army had already begun to assemble at Ulundi, as it did every year for the first fruits ceremony. Cetshwayo sent the 24,000-strong main Zulu impi from near present-day Ulundi on 17th of January across the White Umfolozi River with the following command to his warriors: march slowly, attack at dawn, and eat up the red soldiers. Under the command of Isandlwana Kamahole, the Zulu army had reached its position in easy stages. It marched in 2 columns within sight of each other, but a few miles apart, to prevent a surprise attack from the British. They were preceded by a screening force of mounted scouts, supported by parties of warriors around 300 men strong, tasked with preventing the main columns from being sighted. The British under Chelmsford pitched camp at Isandlwana, but did not follow standing orders to entrench, and no laager was formed. Chelmsford did not see the need for one, stating it would take a week to make it. It was clear that the British had underestimated the Zulu force. Chelmsford believed that a force of over 4,000, including 2,000 British infantry armed with Martini Henry rifles, as well as artillery, had more than sufficient firepower to overwhelm any attack by Zulus, armed only with spears, cowhide shields, and a few firearms. With a British force of this size, it was the logistical arrangements which occupied Chelmsford's thoughts, rather than any fear that the camp might be attacked. Once he had established the camp at Isandlwana, Chelmsford sent out 2 battalions of the Natal native contingent to scout ahead. They skirmished with elements of a Zulu force which he believed to be the vanguard of the main enemy army. Such was his confidence in British military training and firepower that Lord Chelmsford divided his force, departing the camp at dawn on January 22nd with approximately 2,800 soldiers. It never occurred to him that the Zulus he saw were diverting him from their main force. In total, over 2,300 men and 2 artillery guns of No. 3 column were left to defend the camp under the command of Brevet Lieutenant Colonel Henry Pauline. Pauline's orders were to defend the camp and wait for further instructions to support the general as and when called upon. Cavalry scouts patrolling some 11 kilometers from camp reported at 7 a.m. that groups of Zulus numbering around 4,000 men could be seen. Pauline received further reports during the early morning, each of which noted movements both large and small of Zulus. There was speculation among the officers whether these troops were intending to march against Chelmsford's rear or towards the camp itself. Around 10:30 a.m., Colonel Anthony Durnford, whose left arm was paralyzed from wounds sustained at Bushman's River Pass during the pursuit of Chief Langalibalele, arrived from Rorke's Drift with 500 men to reinforce the camp at Isandlwana. After lunch, he quickly decided to take the initiative and move forward to engage a Zulu force which Pauline and Durnford judged to be moving against Chelmsford's rear. On my order, Durnford engaged with this smaller Zulu force. The main Zulu force was discovered at around 11 a.m., who chased a number of Zulus into a valley, only then seeing most of the 20,000 men of the main enemy force sitting in total quiet. Having been discovered, the Zulu force went to the offensive. Pauline sent companies of the 24th Foot into an extended firing line with the aim of meeting the Zulu attack head-on and checking it with firepower. For an hour or so until afternoon, the disciplined British volleys pinned down the Zulu center, inflicting many casualties and causing the advance to stall. Indeed, morale remained high within the British line. The Martini Henry rifle was a powerful weapon, and the men were experienced. Additionally, the shell fire of the Royal Artillery forced some Zulu regiments to take cover behind the reverse slope of a hill. Nevertheless, the left horn of the Zulu advance was moving to outflank and envelop the British right. Durnford's men, who had been fighting the longest, began to withdraw, and their rate of fire diminished. They retreated back to the main British camp. The fighting had been hand-to-hand combat, and no quarter was given to the British regulars. At 2:29 p.m., there was a total eclipse of the sun, briefly plunging the terrible battle into an eerie darkness. A Zulu account describes a group of the 24th forming a square on the neck of Isandlwana. Durnford's men, who could easily have fled as they had horses, died around Durnford in his last stand, while nearby their horses were found dead on their picket rope. A number of desperate last stands were made. Evidence shows that many of the bodies today, marked by cans, were found in several large groups around the camp. Of the 800-plus force of British troops and African auxiliaries, over 1,300 were killed, most of them Europeans. There was no sure casualty count for the Zulus, but it was estimated between 1,500 and 2,000 had been killed. Chelmsford's force was unaware of the disaster that had overwhelmed Pauline's troops until the news filtered through that the camp had been taken. Chelmsford was staggered. He said, "But I left 1,000 men to guard the camp." In the longer term, the British government determined to avenge the defeat, and overwhelming reinforcements were dispatched to Natal. General Garnet Wolseley was sent to replace Lord Chelmsford, arriving after the final battle of the war. However, Cetshwayo's overwhelming success at Isandlwana secured his ultimate downfall for